This conference will now be recorded.
Well, anyways, just if you see that, pull it off.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I was like two cars back waiting to go northbound. Yes, yeah, I already responded to Anna. Yeah, this was they're cleaning up, but there was a pretty good collision, so the truck came in this way, and I got this guy here. So
I don't think so.
yeah, that was the guy who was, I think he was making a left turn. But these are all recorded, so let's see if I can catch the collision. And then like 12.
We'll go over this with Marissa, but it's fine. If I need to look further into something, I can do that.
Yeah.
Here's me. Just waiting earlier. Try to see what happened.
You didn't golf, did you?
No.
Yeah.
I was thinking about if I needed to be ready to jump out with my city issued fire extinguisher.
Oh, yeah.
You know, see a first responder, but it turned out being okay.
The guy starting on that, you know, we have a light.
It's just to, we can adjust our practice. She's concerned about. Very simple.
No.
Just have to get. All right, looks like we got a forum, so let's call this meeting to order. We'll go around and do welcome and introductions, starting on my left, please.
Yeah, Justin Stone, Town King, Public Works Director, Town Engineer.
Dana Horncourt with City of Fort Collins, Capital Projects Manager.
Alex Donaldson, I'm a civil engineer with the city of Loveland.
Myron Hora with Altic Engineers, working on the Lake Elko Phase 2.
Ian Chase, HDR, also working on Phase 2.
Anna Rose Cunningham, transportation planner at the North Front Range.
Mark Northrop, also Transportation Planner, North Front Range. Joshua Ma, Grant Administrator, City of Fort Collins.
Cole Horn, the city engineer for Loveland. Hey, everybody, Dee McIntosh, CDOT Region 4 Planning.
Josie Thomas, the Region 4 Planning and Stakeholder Relations Manager. Becky Nebraska, the Transportation Planning Director with the NFRMPO.
And Mark Overschmidt, city engineer for Evans. And anybody online who'd like to introduce themselves?
Good afternoon, everybody. Will Jones, Deputy Public Works Director for the City of Greeley.
Good afternoon, Jason Elkins, Public Works Director for the town of Johnstown.
Hi all, Phil Von Hake, Multimodal Planning Liaison with CDOT.
Hi, Scott Pearson, Town of Windsor, Civil Engineer.
And I'm Evan Pinkham. I'm a transportation planner with Weld County. Good to see you guys.
Hi, I'm Michelle Johnson. I'm the mobility manager for the city of Greeley.
Hi, Suzette Millette, Executive Director, North Front Range NPO.
Tom Moore with the Regional Air Quality Council.
Ori Schmidt with the North Front Range NPO.
Sounds like everybody I saw on the screen, so if you didn't introduce yourself, we know you're here. If we have any public comment, either in the house or online. Hearing none, move on to the next item. Looking for approval of the April 17th, 2024 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion or comments?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, David.
Second.
Thank you, Nicole. Given that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passed. We don't have any items on the consent agenda. Oh, no, sorry. I always skip that. Regional air quality updates. Tom?
Okay, hi, everybody. I don't really have a very thoroughly prepared discussion. We're, kind of deep into working on the next ozone state implementation plan, and we've been doing a lot of public outreach through our control strategy committee. We had a meeting today, and we've been talking about our modeling and analysis efforts. And next week on the interagency coordination group meeting, we're going to be talking with folks from North Front Range MPO and Dr. Cog about the process of making the mobile emission estimates for the ozone plan. I did have a question. I don't know how to facilitate this, remotely exactly, but I just wondered for the folks in the room and on the, joining remotely, how many of you are attending RAC meetings to keep up with the regional air quality work? And if somebody could signal that to me, that would be great. If it's one person or 5 people or whatever, it's hard for me to know what to cover in these regional updates without understanding a little better what involvement the other folks on the TAC, have in our process.
So Tom, MPO staff attends, so whether that's myself or Suzette or our consultant Dina Boytok, we attend. I don't know if anyone TAC will.
Right, great.
I don't, yeah.
But none of the cities or counties that are represented here in the TAC would routinely attend. Is that right?
From the head shaking in the room, the answer is yes, that's correct. They're not attending.
Okay. Well, I guess I'd like to, rethink, how we do these regional updates on the monthly meetings, because I'm realizing that the vast majority of folks probably don't have any idea what we're doing, and so maybe there's perhaps a short written report that would be more helpful to before I do a verbal update. I'm really open to some better format to see that people are receiving information that's helpful to them.
A written report be something.
Yeah, from my perspective, a written report would be helpful because I'm more of a visual than an audio person. Plus, it gives me time to rethink it after I've heard it. So if I have any comments or ideas about what's written, I can always, it's a little easier to respond.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry, who was speaking?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Mark from Evans.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark.
Suzette has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Suzette.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Tom, and I understand that most people in this room do not necessarily pay attention to what's going on in the RAC for every meeting that's occurring. But I would say that there are things that happen at the RAC that will affect people in this room. So I'm okay with Mark's suggestion about the written, but if there is something that is specifically going to impact people, I think that needs to be a verbal conversation, because the people in TAC are really working with their elected officials when it comes to the council meeting. So So I would just make that caveat, that if there's something that's going to directly impact people, that it needs to be a discussion.
Okay, well, maybe I can follow up with you or Becky or some group at the MPO, because I actually don't fully understand which ones are impacting, at the city level and that kind of thing. So, but I'd be happy to work on that. I just feel like maybe I haven't been communicating very effectively, so.
You could reach out to me, Tom. This is Becky.
Okay, great. I'll make a note to do that. Thank you very much. So I could put some recent meeting links in the chat, and folks could look at those if they would like to. But I guess that's the extent of my report today.
Thanks, Tom.
Welcome.
Okay, we don't have anything on the consent agenda this month, so we'll move on to the action item, the May 2024 TIP amendment with Anna Rose.
Thank you. Amy? Here we go. The May 2024 amendment to the fiscal year 2024 to 2027 TIP includes one revision, which is a new project addition from the city of Greeley, which is the 10th Street Multimodal Enhancements Project with $1,050,000 in the community project funding and local match of $218,000 and local overmatch of $7.2 million in fiscal year 2024. The 30-day public comment period for the May 2024 TIP amendment began on May 8th and will conclude on June 6th. There is an equity analysis for this project since it is a location-specific project, which was included in your packet. And I will open it up for any questions about this project or the TIP amendment.
And I believe Will's on the line from Greeley if we have any questions. I'm not seeing any questions. Are there any questions online?
Doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like it, okay. So the staff supports this moving forward, so I guess we're looking for a motion, folks. Thank you, Dana.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a second online. Who was that online?
There was
Is that
Will,
Evan?
sorry. It was Will, but whoever wants to, I'm fine.
Motion and a second. Do we have, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So next is the presentation on US 34 transit study. Ian and Myron are on that one.
All right. Thank you. Again, my name is Ian Chase. I'm with HDR. I'm the project manager on the consultant side for this project. Becky, I've been working with Becky at the NFRMPO. This project, we referred to it as Link NoCo Phase 2 earlier. We sort of rebranded that because it is focused on the US 34 corridor. So I'll try to keep this brief. I think I have 10, 15 minutes-ish. Give a little project overview, talk about our schedule, talk about how you all can support us. We'll discuss some of the research and the existing conditions we've done to this point, the transit operations analysis that we're doing, and then the public engagement side of things. So the project location, you all know this corridor, US 34. Basically, we're looking to connect downtown Loveland over to Greeley, downtown, the UNC area along the corridor. And this came out of Link NoCo Phase 1, which was approved a couple of years ago, October 2022, and that study identified premium transit corridors in the North Front Range region, and 3 corridors were considered priority corridors, and the Loveland to Greeley US 34 corridor sort of rose to the top. So we are now moving into Phase 2, which is this transit plan for US 34. So a quick overview. Essentially, this is all about premium transit. It's trying to identify a way to connect the Loveland, Greeley communities and areas in between with fast, reliable, and efficient service. We know there was a service on this corridor some decade, 15 years ago, and it did not produce results like you would like to see with ridership. And so, having too many stops is an issue there, and the travel time can be too long. So that's one of the things that we're really looking to hit on here, is keeping it fast and reliable. Premium transit has those limited stops, and then we're looking at how can we keep that travel time moving along. Are there spots where you can put in a dedicated bus lane, queue jumps, transit signal priorities? Those are some of the capital improvements that we're considering. This is a horrible slide. This is our schedule. I really need to replace that. We're in May. We started in January. We're going through December. The bluish area there, that's all of the existing conditions, our research that we've been doing, and then the alignment, alternative development. We're getting to that point now where we're getting to a preferred recommended alignment, trying to identify those particular stops, and then we can start identifying what the capital improvements would be. You will see there's a little green blob up there. There's an online public open house, and Becky will be able to share the link and the info to that. And that's one of those things that we're hoping for some help from all of you, is spreading the word. That is up and ready to visit, and it will basically be kicking off today and through the rest of the month. So I jumped ahead a little bit. Some of the things that you all can help us with is providing any feedback here, obviously, as you see this, connecting us with any others that you feel should be involved, and we need to hear from anybody else that you think would like to weigh in on this. We do have our own project management team. We have a TAC team. A couple weeks ago, I presented to the US 34 Coalition. So now we're on to you all, and if there's anybody else that you feel should be included, please let us know. And then obviously the last point that I was just touching upon is spreading the word about our engagement opportunities, and this online public open house is the first one of those. So I'm gonna breeze through some of this rather quickly. There's a lot of text on this slide. One of the first things we did was transit research interviews. Myron here was involved in that effort. We reviewed 5 different peer services around the country that have a similar service that we're sort of looking for here, BRT style or premium transit style. A couple of those are in Colorado. And then the right, we had some interviews with some of those peers and discuss some of the capital improvements that they did. And basically we're just looking for lessons learned and best practices so that we can learn from others' mistakes and identify those elements that will help lift this up and get the best ridership possible. Some of the takeaways there, again, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. A premium service versus your typical local service, it really will increase ridership. We were seeing enhance user experience on these other services around the country. Diversified funding is critical. We want to leverage federal and state grants and help identify where these funds can come from. There's a slew of best practices that we kind of identified that includes like the transit signal priority, queue jumps, and then data-driven planning for those station locations, and then looking at the bus roadway operations themselves. And some of that included, identifying where there's dedicated off-street right-of-way that can be dedicated to this, and seamless connections to existing transit services. Those were some of those key takeaways. On the cost side of things, some of the things that we were hearing is that there have to be improvements that were made to the local roadway network that this service is now operating on. Some new replaced signals along these corridors. Those are obviously can be costly. And then some of it, those signals, it's related to upgrading signals for new technologies and equipment, load capacity issues. And then the construction of at-grade stations obviously can be costly. So with that research piece going on, we also then were looking at existing conditions just to try to make sure we have a good understanding of what the existing transit systems look like in the region, and look at travel patterns and how we're seeing people travel between and through Loveland and Greeley and the communities in between. So some of the things that we were looking at: transit propensity, where are those riders that really rely on transit and are going to use transit? Like I said, the transit characteristics of Colt and Get currently. I'll touch upon replica data. That's a big data platform that helps us identify those origins and destinations for these trips. And then we'll get into some of the alignments and the screening that we've done. So transit propensity, the graphic you see there, we were able to pull data, demographic data, and kind of combine this and kind of gave a score to the various zones, areas, neighborhoods in the two different communities to help us try to identify where the route alignment really should go and potentially where stops would be. Who are those people that are most likely going to use this or really need to use it? We did that transit review, looking at Colt, looking at Get, the number of routes, weekday boardings. Again, just trying to get an idea of what the transit systems look like right now and how this can seamlessly integrate with those systems. So on the left there, you can see the Colt transit network. There's, I believe, six routes. And the dots on there kind of show where those, the highest and the amount of average boardings, weekday boardings, and where those stop locations where you're getting lots of boardings are located. On the right is the Greeley transit network, and unfortunately, we didn't have existing boarding, alighting data from Greeley post-COVID. They are still trying to sort through some of that data. So all we really had there to work off of was the existing transit network. So I touched upon this earlier, replica data. As I said, it's a big data platform. It's basically looking at cell phone vehicle travel patterns. And this service sort of models then how the existing travel patterns, where people are originating from, where their trips are destined for. And what you see on the right there is just the trips that we are seeing going between these two different communities. Where are the hot spots? Where are most of the trips originating from or destined to? This image, I can't recall if this is an eastbound where origins are on the left in Loveland, and destinations are on the east in Greeley. I believe that's what we're looking at here. The reverse is basically the exact same. The hot spots are in yellow and orange, and you can see basically where, those trip ends, the highest demand, where those folks are located and where they're going to, obviously. So alignment development, we took all of that information. We took what came out of Link NOCO phase 1 and started there. That's that solid line that you can see going from Loveland, the south transfer station on the left, through the Centera area along I-25, and the new mobility hub for I-25, and then continuing on 34 to the east, along 34, and then heading north to UNC area. We wanted to look at a couple other route options in Greeley. The west side, Loveland, it was pretty evident what we were going to move forward with. The Greeley side felt like there were a couple of different options. So we did consider a second option where it goes along 20th Street, 16th Street, that goes right by Ames in Greeley, and then continues over and connects it at UNC. The other option was to stay along US 34 Business Loop and 10th Street. You can also see some dashes sort of on the endpoints there. In Loveland, something that is being considered is having a different termini, the North Transfer Station, that new station, I believe it's off of 37th. And then on the Greeley side, considering extending from UNC up to the Greeley Transportation Center. So with all of that, we did a high-level initial alternative screening. Some of the things we're looking at is key destinations, the transit connectivity, ridership potential, that transit propensity that we talked about. And then we also were looking at, okay, what do the local regional plans suggest, and how did the agency and jurisdiction, what kind of support do we have for the different alternatives there? And from all of that, we had those three options that I just described. Option 1 here, staying along US 34, that one we advanced to the more detailed screening that we're going through right now. All three of these options really had pretty good ridership numbers. They were equivalent, I would say. But this option in particular had the highest level of transit connectivity, where you're connecting with the existing transit systems in Greeley and in Loveland, in particular because Greeley has plans for that Center Place mobility hub along US 34. And then it had the highest level of agency support from what we've heard from our PMT, the TAC, the US 34 Coalition a couple weeks ago. And it's also consistent with the local and regional planning efforts that have come before this. Option 2, again, still had fairly decent ridership. This is the option that went by Ames. It only had moderate support from the agencies, and it does duplicate a couple of the local services in Greeley. This option was also not identified in any of the local and regional plans. So we did not advance that one to the detailed screening. And then option 3 was to continue along the US 34 business loop. Basically same story, moderate agency support. It did have decent ridership again, but it didn't have that support. It does duplicate some routes along the business loop, including the Pooter Express. And again, it also was not identified in local and regional plans. So we did not advance that to the detailed screening as well. So at this point, we have our recommended alignment, and now we are in the detailed screening, identifying termini on the west end. Do we go to the south transfer point or the north transfer point in Loveland? On the east side in Greeley, do we end the service at UNC? That's your termini on the east, or is UNC a stop that then is followed up, and the Greeley Transportation Center to the north is the final destination? And then along the corridor in between, there are about 10 different stops, 9 different stops that are being considered at this point. Again, one of the key things that we're trying to do is minimize the number of stops, minimize any diversions off of 34, off of the main corridor, so that we can keep that travel time as minimal as possible. And so on the left there, you can see some of those stop locations that are being considered right now. And so in that final, as we do this evaluation, here's some of the detailed screening elements before we get to that final alignment and identify those stops. There's a whole list there. I won't go through all of those, but stakeholder feedback, community support is one of those things. I do want to emphasize that, as that's one of the things that's on the website, the open house, asking the public what they think of this. And then again, TAC, PMT, you folks, we want your feedback as well if there's anything that you would recommend or suggest. This slide just touches upon that community engagement. Right now, obviously, again, that website is up. We do have other stakeholder meetings and more PMT, TAC meetings in the future. We'll have another public meeting. Right now is scheduled for August, September. We may overlap that and join it with, I believe there's an opportunity to do a joint open house in person related to the CDOT, their mobility hub opening. That would be in July. So that's, we're really trying to maintain the connection to the public, and then again to the TAC, PMT, and you folks as well. So here's some of those upcoming dates. I think I just kind of covered that. So, and that is basically it. Any questions? I'll skip to this slide. Basically, the biggest question that we have is how people feel about the preferred route as it is right now. And if you have comments on the stop locations or any feedback for us, we'd love to hear it.
Suzette's on there.
I can
No,
jump
Will,
in here
that's-
real quick.
Go
Sorry.
ahead, Will. That's okay.
No,
Go
you're
ahead.
good. So sorry I couldn't be there today, folks. Appreciate the opportunity to provide a couple comments. And so one thing, if it's helpful, we can. I think UNC is going to be a big part in this, and we can definitely work with them to get it shared, that link with their student body and faculty as well. In the past, we've worked with them to get a GIS file of their student and faculty body as well. And when we did that exercise for the Poudre Express, there was quite a few in the Loveland area, so we'd be glad to work to kind of get that if that's of interest to the firm or consultant and team as well. As it relates to the route and some of the feedback that really kind of provided at the 34 Coalition, I think from our perspective anyways, because we've already got service and pretty frequent, it's every 20-minute service along that 10th Avenue, which is close to that dotted line there between 11 and 12. Our preference would be to stop the service there at 11, number 11 there. I don't know that there's a need in Greeley for number 10 at the mall. That will be transitioning and moving away as we adjust routes. Michelle and her team are knee deep in our mobility development plan, which will adjust routes, and the Greeley Mall will more than likely no longer be a transfer center. It will be there at 9. Number 8, I think I think it's something we can keep on there. I know some of the comments we kind of provided during the 34 coalition there is between the stops there between 7, basically between 4, 5, 6, and 7, and just, I don't know, it would be interesting, and maybe you guys have already done that, looked at what local routes are currently covering that area, as well as 3 and 1. Just something for consideration as we look at funding, and so part of this too is tying into, as I think everybody knows, Greeley, with the support of NPO, we applied for and received CMAQ money to operate the service, and so we're starting to pull together kind of plans and funding options to get that going, and so we will be sending out an invite to the potential partner agencies, county and communities, to kind of start having that conversation for that service, because that's coming up in 2026. And ideally, we'd like to pull in, obviously, the details that come out of this plan, but some of the bus purchases, as everybody knows, those don't, go pull up to a lot and purchase those. So trying to work through some of that. We've actually taken some steps and applied for, Michelle's team's applied for 5339 funding and such, but I know that's a lot to kind of throw out there, but just some thoughts from Greeley's side. So.
Yeah, mine's a little bit different track. Thank you, Will, for all of that stuff. That I know that really early on has raised their hand and said they do want to operate the service. So they did go after the CMAQ money. I don't remember which slide it was on, Ian, but the one where you're talking about almost, I think, the 12 stops, and you said you wanted to keep the travel time fairly reasonable. So my question is, have you tested that with those 12 stops? Have you tested that travel time? I'd just be curious to see what that looks like. If you're talking, you're muted.
Yeah, okay, we got it now. We have run different model scenarios. We're in the middle of kind of tweaking some of the stop locations. And it is one of those things that we have discussed doing a run where there's fewer stops, just to see if that does improve ridership, travel time overall. So that's sort of a to be determined at this point.
So I'm sorry, when you were muted, did you say what the travel time was on these 12, or I missed that if you did?
I actually don't know that. Kevin Noon on my team would know that. So I'll have to look into it. Myron, you don't recall what we were.
Is there like a target range? You're looking for 45 minutes to an hour?
No, it's definitely not a target range. It's just trying to it's sort of transportation planning judgment here, really.
Yeah, that's my immediate thought was and this is where Colt and Get need to come in. You've got that, you're considering their routes and everything, and Will mentioned his routes, but it's that it's like that last mile thing when it comes to delivery. You want to dial in how far people want to get on a bus or whatever, and that's the magic number right there. So I'm thinking reducing the stops on the ends and opening up the middle. So like 12 seems a little excessive.
Yeah.
To me.
Well, and I will point out 1 and 2. First of all, that's an or. That's either.
Right, yeah,
that wouldn't be both of those. I should point out 10, the Greeley Mall Transfer Center. That is more of a temporary location dependent upon the mobility hub, Center Place Mobility Hub. If when that goes in place, then 10 would no longer be there.
That makes perfect sense.
And then 5, that's your CDOT mobility hub with I-25. That's your connection with Bustang. That's a pretty critical one. So that's the one location where we're really diverting from the corridor. but it's such a key stop that we feel like it kind of needs to be included. 4 and 6 there are along the roadway. They feel like short, just stop, just pull over, drop off. It's not a diversion off of the existing route. The other big one is 7. That's the Johnstown, Shields. We have looked at that. We are wondering, is it worthwhile to divert off of US 34? That's one of those things we're looking at. It will increase travel time. There is some congestion in that area. We don't want to put a stop somewhere and start this service and the travel time is just, killed because we're trying to hit too many stops. Some of these, maybe they're future stops that we consider adding in later, dependent upon the success of the service and feedback from the actual riders and the community. Again, that Shields location, one thing that would be great is to somehow be able to stop right on 34 and provide a grade separated multimodal connection for people to walk under, go over 34, whatever it is. You've got that intersection there. I don't know that there's too many people that would really like to be crossing a crosswalk on 34 right there. Those are the things we have to consider. And that's the sort of stuff that our models aren't really going to tell us. And that's where that judgment, engineering judgment comes into play. But ideally, this is, 11 is about the maximum. And ideally, we would see more like 8 or 9 stops total. I will say, Will, you had mentioned the continuation up to 12 to the transportation center. Maybe that's not necessary. I actually heard a little bit different from Michelle, maybe Leighton. And I just set up a call with Michelle, Becky, myself, and if you're available, maybe you can join us for, I forget if it was Monday or Tuesday, early next week. But we were going to discuss some of this one-on-one with Michelle and get some feedback there, and also talk about what you were talking about with the purchasing buses and the CMAQ funding and all of that. That was a topic that I wanted to discuss with her as well.
No, that's fine. We would be glad to meet with that and chat through that from that perspective. So it would be, as you guys do travel times, it would be interesting to know kind of what, at least a gauge for us was looking. Obviously, we know transit's going to take a little bit longer, but it would be interesting to know and compare against making those trips and making those stops, right? And comparing that to what the travel time is. Depending on, you definitely agree 5 is definitely a key connection point there. And so maybe knowing what the travel time is for just myself jumping in a car and driving it and comparing that, and that may be a good baseline, just some thoughts from that perspective there.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll pull that information and can start sharing it. Another element that I want to share with all of you is, the stop locations are just one piece of it. The other piece in keeping the travel times at a minimum is providing the capital improvements that Myron is helping to identify. Transit signal priorities, where can that go in? Maybe there's a dedicated lane to help get around, queue jumps to get around traffic. County Road 13, County Road 17, those intersections are a mess. Is there pavement? Is there a way to bypass some of that? So those are all elements that we're looking at.
And also, some of those have service roads too, which we could maybe incorporate the service roads to try to help with that.
If it doesn't take too long to get to the service roads.
And there was something in one of those slides that Ian talked about, when we did our peer review, when we started this project, we were kind of under the assumption we could start adding to the system as it was developing. Hey, let's get something out there and start adding to. And when we met with all the peer agencies, they're like, you need to put this in right off the bat. And that's what they did. Luckily, there was a couple of them that had, working with their DOTs or local agency, public works departments, they already had projects planned to do roadway improvements. So they were able to come in and kind of tag on to that and get the transit improvements put in the same time. Those are mostly those serious BRT routes, what you consider true BRT, dedicated lane, traffic signal priority at the intersections. This one's a little bit different, really where you're running mostly in mixed use traffic for majority because of these rural long distances. And there was a couple agencies we talked to that did had that kind of thing, like Glasser, you know what I mean, and the Blue Line in New York, and they had kind of that similar rural feel. And they talked about it was really about getting the queue jumps and the traffic signal priority at those key intersections as they were moving along between the communities. And I think that's what we're really looking at, the 17s, the 13s, is a bus on shoulder till you get close enough that you could, introduce a queue jump. Because I don't know if we want to go out there and put in basically almost 3/4 mile long queue jumps, because that's almost what you'd need based on how long those are. What we heard from Velociraptor is, hey, if we can save a minute, if we can save 30 seconds at each of these routes, these intersections, it starts adding up. So that's why we're taking a look at, what's it going to take with traffic signal priority and queue jumps right off the bat to have an efficient, reliable service.
We'll add, we're doing some queue jumps with Colt on 34 west of I-25 using the right turn lane so that the bus can go, buses only can go straight through the right turn lane, and it helps get them past some of the traffic and the backups and saves them a little bit of time at each signal. But we are going to take over the signals, I think, all the way to County Road 3, which is east of I-25. So it'd be good to sit down and talk to you and make sure as we're building some of the new signals that are going to be out there, that we're getting the right technology and have the right equipment to be able to do signal priority.
And that goes in kind of the signals talked about, as part of that improvement. You need to have the mast arms that can handle the additional heads or whatever else you're going to put in there if you're introducing lanes or widening short.
And we're meeting as several of the municipalities on 34 meeting to just coordinate all of the development that's happening, because there's a ton of development that's happening. And this is the perfect project to get those bus stops and things on our radar. So as that development comes in, we can get help from developers to fund some of this infrastructure as well.
Yeah.
So it'd be great to have, I don't know if you guys are up for another, a lot of folks here attend that meeting anyway, so they might hear it twice, but that might be a helpful place to just sort of get a deeper dive on the infrastructure that you're needing, and we can start to get that aligned with some of the development activity that's happening.
Because there's a big development plan for 17 on the southeast corner. Which I think is interested in doing something big on it. I mean, he's talking all the way down to 402. So he's taking up multiple quarter sections.
Gotcha.
Wasn't there a high school planned?
Not there. Well, Haley might know more about that. I don't know.
Is that Johnstown has a high school planned intersection?
I think that's really though, that corner. It's up at 17.
Okay. There's a couple hands raised, have been raised.
Nathan, you go first.
Nathan Boheim from the city of Loveland, and hopefully I've told Nicole this before. We're looking very seriously about putting in a grant this summer to do transit signal priority and connected vehicles and cloud priority using similar technology to what Greeley got a grant for. So we can certainly talk about it, including some of these elements into it, either in the first phase or future phase.
Yeah, and this is Suzette. The other thing I would add on to this is NPO did apply for some 5304 grant last summer to help identify where the stops are, what kind of right-of-way we need, and all of that. We have not yet heard back from DTR about that grant. That would be in addition to what we're working on now. So Becky's gonna ping them, because as a few months ago, they hadn't even pulled together a committee yet to evaluate the projects. And so we're hoping that maybe we start applying some pressure, we might actually find out whether we got funded or not.
Is there someone on the call from DR? I thought I heard
From CDOT.
Nicole, how far along are you with the design and of their TSP and Q jumps west of?
So we're using, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but the buses are currently using, is it the turn lane, Nathan, to go straight through?
Oh, there's a wide shoulder at Boyd Lake that's intended for the future third through lane. And basically the bus drivers started using it. We got complaints about them using it. We decided that we liked what they were doing and that we should legalize it. So we legalized it. And it seems to be operating pretty well, but as soon as we put the third through lane in there, we would have to figure out a different plan for it. And
It's similar to transport where they use the right.
They don't actually get a signal. They just go with the green from their own lane.
Yeah, there's like, we're kind of working through that now, and it's like we go near side parts of you know, how do we were looking particularly like Denver Avenue, you know, how do we get through that with a Q jump, because you got the pork chops out there and that turn lane, you know, and how can we do that without having to get off of 34? Get stuck in that turn lane.
And there's an underpass just past Denver, so if you stop just past Denver, there's an underpass already there with sidewalk trail going down to it.
Yeah, we were looking at that as
That
well.
exists, so you could, and there's a little right turn bay that's probably not needed. I think it was actually probably installed for future transit. I don't know the history behind how it got there, but it's just past Denver Avenue. I think Columbia, maybe, I don't remember the history right past.
We were looking at
Yeah.
the stop location there.
Yeah.
We did have concerns with the existing location, people in the westbound direction getting off at the existing stop, and then just deciding to try to hoof it across 34 quickly rather than walk around to that. And I don't know if you have any anecdotal items, you know, events that you've seen where people are doing that, but that was a concern that we had with the existing stop. It seemed like it was far enough away that.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are the sorts of things that we're looking at. Like, oh, would it be better to have it back at the Denver Avenue intersection where there's a crosswalk and it might be quicker. So
that perception of the out of direction travel and it's like not waiting for the signal, being able to just go under is actually faster, but then the reality of someone understanding that, moving towards their destination, I think is a different psychology. So.
Totally. Any other questions, thoughts online? Okay, thank you. As I mentioned, Becky, we do have the link and everything for the online open house, so we'll share that with all of you, and if you can help us spread the word, that would be fantastic.
I just have one quick question. Is Ames Community College, where is that in Greeley? And I know there's a campus out by.
Well, and I forget what is it 67?
It's where County Road 17 right there. County Road 17. Are you talking about the Windsor campus? I'm sorry.
Ames Community College in Greeley.
In Greeley is on
In Greeley.
20th between 9th and 47th.
And so the route we were suggesting to get off at that stop at 8, which is 65th, and then go up and then head east, and then it hits.
Hit Ames, then jog over to 16th and hit Northern Colorado Medical Center, and then on over to UNC. But then, you got the development at the southeast corner of 17, but then Ames is further developing their campus on the west side at that same location, so.
Yeah.
It's
always
gonna be a good hotspot.
the riders that are willing to take transit too is a great population to tap into, and I think Ames would be one of those.
With the future development potentially, and then what I heard, this was at a meeting almost a year ago about that corner of 17th, they were talking big development, I mean, huge. And that would have definitely involved certain huge transit improvements and traffic improvements at that intersection. So if we're planning for that now, at least have that stop be, if not now, plan for it in the future, so when they build it, we overbuild it now with the infrastructure, and then it's ready to just turn on when we need to. It's a huge investment, and we'd have to get some guarantees that development's gonna move forward. And that's gonna be the trickiest part right now from the development side is, are they gonna move forward? And it's not the traffic that's slowing down the development, it's the water, and that's a whole different area.
Well, and again, the service that we're, the final recommendation will be sort of an opening day recommendation. Where are these stops? And then, if the service is working well, if there's the potential to add additional stops based on future development or just a recognition that there's a population that's not being served and certain trips that aren't being served. The beauty of a bus system versus like a rail system is that, you can make a shift and add a stop if you like, so.
And add a bus.
Add a bus. All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the 2024 MMOF discussion and Anna Rose.
Thank you. All right, everybody's favorite topic, funding. So today we wanted to talk about MMOF just kind of as an introduction of what is coming. There's still some information that we're waiting on, so this is not super in-depth, but wanted everybody to be prepared that this is something that's coming up through the rest of the year. So just a quick review of MMOF. First, I do want to mention that in previous iterations of MMOF, we've had some like federal state funding splits, but moving forward, it is state funding. So I just want to clarify that now moving forward, MMOF is a state funding source, should be. So just to quickly review the goals of the MMOF program, it is to benefit seniors by making aging in place more feasible, benefit residents of communities in rural and disproportionately impacted communities by providing them with more accessible and flexible public transportation services, provides enhanced mobility for persons with disabilities, provide safe routes to school for children, increase access to and or usage of transit or multi-use facilities, and reduce emissions of air pollutants, including hazardous air pollutants and greenhouse gases that contribute to adverse environmental effects, including but not limited to climate change and adverse human health effects. So I have drafted a timeline that at this time is just proposed because, like I said, there are some things that we're waiting on still, but wanted to just get this in front of people to start thinking about the timeline of this call. So there are some discussions that are happening at some state meetings upcoming. So TC is discussing some of the things about MMOF today. So we might have a few more answers after that, but then there's going to be a stack discussion in June about stack discussion on the funding allocations and projections. So that's one of the pieces that we kind of need to know before we move forward is just how much funding we have available to award. At this point, we did make awards out through 2025, but I don't know if we have awarded all of that funding yet. So theoretically, it could just be 26 and 27 that we're funding. There is the possibility that there's some earlier funding, and I just don't know that yet. So that's one of the big pieces that we're waiting on that we don't know yet. So if all goes according to plan, we would like to have the call open in September, have it open for 6 weeks. So applications would be due on October 18th. Final awards, we would be looking looking at the January 2025 council meeting. Let me see. One thing, we have asked CDOT to come and speak at the June TAC meeting, so that is tentatively scheduled to happen next month. One of the things that has been updated for this round of MMOF is some of the is the match reduction formula. So they have updated the formula to use 2021 data as opposed to 2019 data that was used for the last rounds. That formula is based off of percent above poverty, percent under 65 years, median household income, and median home value. And so the general match rate for MMOF is 50% or 1-to-1 match. But there are some reductions that have been put in place that allow for an automatic reduction in that, that match percentage. So there are 4 communities within the North Front Range that would then qualify for, or would have 25% match instead of that 50% match. The 2 that have changed from the last time are Evans and Loveland. So the 4 that have the 25% match is Evans, Greeley, Loveland, and Larimer County. Garden City gets a 0% match. For all of this interested in Garden City. There is still the potential to request the match alleviation, which is on a project-by-project basis, and that does have to be approved by TC. If there is a project that somebody is potentially considering that on, you do have to have like a documentation of need and submit that to TC, and I would recommend getting with us as soon as possible for that, or at least talking that through with us, so we can get that moving if we need to.
When you say that as soon as possible, well in advance of the.
Yes, I think, if I recall correctly, we did do this last time in 2022 where Weld County requested a 25% match, and I think that we made that award based on the assumption that it would be approved by TC. So kind of depending on how our process and TC align, we would just have to figure out what that looks like. And there was like a caveat that if they didn't receive it, would they be able to move forward with the project, or would they have to return those funds to the pool? So just know that that would kind of be, some of the things that you'd have to think through if you didn't receive that alleviation. Would you still be able to proceed, or would you not be able to proceed with the project? So I wanted to talk about the project types and kind of our process for this call. We are planning on carrying forward the process that we had used in 2022 into this call and not changing it dramatically. So we had 2 separate categories of projects that people were allowed to apply for, projects that are eligible under the MMOF program, but would need to be scored differently. So we have the category A projects, which were the quantifiable greenhouse gas reducing projects. So this would be things like operating costs for new fixed route transit, capital costs for fixed route transit, TDM programs, multimodal mobility projects enabled by new technology, greenhouse gas mitigation projects, and then bicycle and pedestrian projects. And I do have the definition of those greenhouse gas mitigation projects, which essentially fit into the rest of those project categories. And then we have the non-quantifiable or non-greenhouse gas reducing projects, which are operating costs for existing fixed route transit, operating capital costs for on-demand transit, multimodal transportation studies, and then modeling tools. We had created the scoring criteria for the 2022 MMOF call, and that's one of the things that we will be revisiting to see how much of this we want to keep, how much of it we want to change for this call. One of the things that is different between the 2022 MMOF and then the 2023 federal call is that we had a lot more like sub-criteria that were data-driven and quantifiable in these scoring criteria, whereas the 2022 MMOF was a little bit more loose and based on the discretion of the scoring committee. So we'll be interested from this group to see how much we want to change this scoring criteria, make it more like data-driven and being able to be calculated, or keeping it a little bit more open to interpretation. One of the things that CDOT has talked about is the review of project applications. Kind of this process has evolved through the different iterations of MMOF. What they are requesting this time is that CDOT review all applications, all draft applications. And so we've been talking with CDOT Region 4 about how we want to do this process. And so in the past, we've requested certain projects send their draft applications or their mini applications directly to CDOT, but what we will be requesting this time is that draft applications be submitted to the NFRMPO. We'll do our review, CDOT will do their review, and then send feedback back to everybody. So more of those details will be fleshed out as we go through this process, but just wanted to make sure everybody knew that it will be a requirement for all projects to have CDOT review that draft application. Yes.
I just want to say it's a review, it's to help you guys. We're not scoring, we're not making recommendations to NFR what projects people should select. It's truly just to make sure that when we get to that contracting phase, if your project is awarded, my local HSC team doesn't have any difficulties.
I don't remember what call it was, but you guys did like meetings or office hours. It was super helpful to get just there were some questions you had in the application that you asked during that meeting that made us go, oh my gosh, we didn't even include that utility information or something like that. So it was really helpful to do that. I don't know if that's an opportunity again.
If you want one, we can totally do it, not a problem.
It was helpful to hear the feedback and kind of what.
I don't think, so we run the TAC call, Region 4 does, which is why we were able to do that. We're not running this process, we're supporting the process. I don't see Bryce having any issue meeting with folks who are interested to walk through their application, or we can schedule that after you get feedback from Bryce and his team.
Maybe we start with the written feedback.
There will be a webinar, maybe a series of, oh, am I jumping?
Skipping it.
Well, stay tuned. Stay on the
Yeah, so some of this is good feedback, and that's something, we've considered too, is like, does it make sense for us to have like open office hours? And maybe that's something that we can coordinate as well we want to help support you in the applications as much as possible, and I know CDOT does as well. So that is something that we can look into. Maybe you didn't actually have it on one of these. I want to go back to the schedule. There will be a few different things that are planned, and so like Josie alluded to, CDOT is planning on having a webinar for applicants sometime in June or July. We don't have any of those details yet, but as soon as we have any information, we'll pass that along.
We're hoping it's recorded, so if you can't make it, you'll be able to watch the video. It's going to cover basic things like eligibility, what kind of projects are good with these types of funds. It's going to go over the contracting process, I believe. So just very high level stuff for folks, especially for folks new to applying for this grant fund or applying for state funds. There's a lot that goes into that.
And then we will also have our applicant workshop tentatively scheduled for the Monday after the call opens, so September 9th, which would also be recorded and posted for people to review as well. That goes more detailed into our application process specifically. Let's see.
That is about all I had on that. So just a few next steps. TC is anticipated to approve the match rate formula and the distribution formula. So that will help us know a little bit more about how we want to proceed. At the June TAC meeting, CDOT is scheduled to present about MOF program updates. And hopefully we will have some potential funding estimates by that time. And then we can also go into further review of the scoring criteria. So I want to open it up for any questions, and I'll go back to the scoring criteria slide to get kind of feedback on what we want to move forward with scoring criteria.
Have you reached out to headquarters on the request for June 19th?
Yes.
It is a state holiday.
June.
So
I will double check with that. We might not have specified
it's one of those new
date.
holidays that, yeah, not a lot of calendars, but it's a holiday.
Okay, yeah, I'll double check and we'll see how that goes. Yeah, if they do end up coming in July as opposed to June, then we can just continue to have our internal discussions. We will still plan on having our TAC meeting on that day.
Will, you have your hand up?
Real quick, just a couple questions, and I apologize, this may be a stupid one, but the joys of only having to coming to these every once in a while when Bouchard's not able to make it, so I apologize. But just out of curiosity on the 2% partner match that was in there, I think I saw, is that have to be financial or it can be in kind, or what's the, I don't know if there's any clarification on that.
Yes, in the past we have specified that is the financial contribution of
That's right.
that local match, yeah.
Perfect. And then last one, and this is probably the really stupid one, so I apologize, but so if looking at the goals of MMOF, right, greenhouse gas or more specifically reducing emissions and air pollutants, right, as a goal, what is the driving factor for having, and again, I apologize, but two categories, one for non-qualifying, non-GHG reducing projects, right? I'm just trying to understand that, sorry.
Yeah, so there are several project types that are eligible under the MOF program, and not every project has to meet every goal of the program. And so there are project types that are eligible that you're not going to have a quantifiable greenhouse gas reduction. So, plans for like multimodal plans that we have funded in the past, those are eligible, those are great projects. They could eventually lead to greenhouse gas reductions, but the actual implementation or the actual development of the plan is not going to result in greenhouse gas reductions. So we didn't want to penalize those projects when they are good projects and they're eligible projects just because they weren't able to be quantifiable. Another project that is a good example from our last call that was part of the non-quantifiable is the VIA pilot program that was awarded to Weld County. And so we were able to fund that program, which has been really great, but that is not a project that can have a quantifiable greenhouse gas reduction.
So as a follow-up.
Perfect, thank you, I appreciate it.
But you have operating costs for existing fixed route transit and then capital costs for on-demand transit next to models and multimodal planning. Two separate animals that don't really compete against each other, apples and apples. So wouldn't it make, and this is just me thinking out loud, make sense to make them a category C? Because how do we quantify and score those type of projects when they're not even remotely alike?
That could be something that we look into.
Okay.
I don't recall exactly what all types of projects that we had, but when we're looking at the scoring criteria, if we're seeing that, something like the VIA project and then operating costs for or, one of those other project types, if we're seeing that they're not able to like come out well with this category B, then we can look at that. But I don't think that was necessarily an issue that we saw in the last call.
Evans doesn't usually play this realm yet, we're gonna get there eventually, but it's just me thinking, a study and a model are not gonna have any quantifiable impact. The other two will.
Right, well, and so when you're looking, the category B projects are the non-quantifiable, so there's no points awarded to greenhouse gas emissions. But you can still look at the providing transportation equity, and that's gonna, you can look at that both with a study or with, operating costs. Community benefits, that's talking about, that's really gonna be based off the narrative that you're providing for your project. What kind of benefits is operating versus, this plan going to give. So I think when you look at it specifically, hopefully that was what we were going for, that we, be able to measure those projects against each other, even though they are very different projects.
Okay. Thank you.
Will?
Sorry, it helps when you lower your hand. Sorry about
One of the things I did also just want to encourage is that if you have a project that you just are not sure if it's a good fit for MMOF, to reach out to us and talk to us about that, just to figure out if it makes sense, so that you don't go through this whole process and get to the end and realize that it's not, or if you get to the end and realize, oh, I should have applied for that project. Just want to be able to figure out all of that ahead of time, since these are some new project types.
Do you know, because the CDOT participation is a little bit new for us as well, because we're doing it with all of our TPRs. Traditionally, if it impacted the state highway, we could do a letter of concurrence. I'm assuming that would be separate.
Yes, well, yes, I would potentially think that the same information that is being provided for the application review would be able to, that you'd be able to figure out if you have that concurrence based on that, but only projects that impact the state highway would need that concurrence letter. And that still, I would assume, needs to.
I just want to make sure that if a project does meet MMOF, but CDOT doesn't support the project and how it impacts our state highway, we have to okay the project from that oversight of MMOF eligibility and things. But I'd like an opportunity separately to say, however, this doesn't fall in line with anything we have planned for the corridor or whatever. That hasn't happened in the 5 years I've been here, just so you know. We haven't ever not supported a project. I want to make sure if we meet with applicants or if we're offering our services to review, that that's not an assumption that we're in support of the project.
Yes, and
Okay.
for projects impacting a state highway, they would need to have that specific concurrence letter provided still.
And you guys don't have to ask for that. We'll read your application and we'll just give that to you. Or it'll be an email or something that you can attach.
There was something I was going to say and I don't remember.
Is that covered with the meeting? We required a meeting between the applicants and CDOT staff. Was that count?
Did that last time.
Yeah.
But because that was the guidance from.
But this will supersede that, and this will count.
I believe at least.
Well, and if it's a transit related project, it really needs to go to
Yes,
DTR.
that was the thought I was having, is that I don't have that specific contact information yet, but transit projects would need the DTR review as opposed to a local agency review. Oh, and then the last thing, one of the things that CDOT had wanted to emphasize is fully funding projects. So if you have projects that are partially funded that can be eligible under MMOF, would encourage applications to, complete the funding of that project. Just keep in mind, the match
rate, but then at the same time, MOF can be matched by anything that's not MMOF. So MMOF can be matched by federal funding, like TAC funding or something like that.
So just to make sure I got this straight in my mind, let's say you had a TIP program project that is funded at the 17 or 20% local match rate. Those are federal grant dollars.
Yes.
And so the local match is non-federal. So MMOF funding could be used to help complete a partially funded project, like if you had overmatch?
Yes.
Okay.
And then at the same time, the TAP funding, or we'll use TAP as an example because it's a similar program. That federal funding could be full or partial match to MMOF.
I see.
So not only the overmatch, but the actual federal funding. I think it gets into kind of a weird spot when you try to use local match to match two different things. I would maybe stay away from that.
Sure.
Because that gets really confusing, but you can use the actual federal funds to match the state funds.
Okay. I think my takeaway would be that if we wanted to go that direction, I would start very early working with you.
Yes.
You understand how it all is going to work out.
Yes.
Cool, thanks, Ann Rose.
Will there be a TAC call in and around the same time?
No. I don't know what CDOT had awarded through their last TAP call.
It's every 3 years for us at the moment, so we have a little bit.
Yeah, so probably another 2-ish years for that. And then we don't have more TAP or TA to award until our next federal call. But projects that are already programmed, you would still need to apply for it. It's not going to be like when we do additional allocations and you're automatically eligible. But even if it's a project that has already been awarded, you can reapply to fully fund that project. Phil says, look for another TAP round from CDOT in early 2026 for fiscal years 27 to 29. Cool. So. We're at about a every year call for project cycle at this time.
Keeps it exciting.
I get it. Keep coming.
Exactly. So I did want to, and we don't need final decision at this point, but I do want to know what the thoughts on, scrapping the scoring criteria and then starting over, or just building off of this, or somehow integrating the federal call processes into this process. Just want to get some thoughts on that.
Can you remind me who scores?
So the scoring committee would be TAC members, one representative from each community. If you apply for funding, you're required to be on the scoring committee. Any other TAC members are allowed to be on the scoring committee even if they didn't apply for funding during this call. And then other agencies are able to be non-voting members, so like CDOT and can provide, feedback on the projects, but would be a non-voting member. This presentation was sent out in the handouts packet.
It was very late yesterday afternoon.
Yes, but it should have been there. And I did also want to remind everybody, I think that I mentioned this last time, but just in case I didn't, our TAC meetings are now recorded and put on YouTube and put on our meeting materials page. So if you need to refer back to that, if you weren't able to attend a meeting, that is available. And Phil very helpfully just posted the link to that. Thank you, Phil. I think that's all I had.
Any more questions or comments online? Thank you very much. Moving on. Outside partner reports. Local Bike and Ped is a handout. Regional transit agencies, anybody? No? Mobility and updates is also a handout. And in the reports, we have the May planning council meeting, mobility committee, and there's no discussions, we have roundtable.
I got something.
Okay, we'll go there.
Hopefully you guys all received the email inviting you guys to a local agency training that CR Region 4 is hosting. Fantastic resources there for all of you. We're gonna have our environmental LA contact, Jacqueline Giles. Right away will be there. Hydraulics with Brian Varela, utilities with David Torres. And then we're also gonna have civil rights and contract compliance there. And I believe Bryce and his team will also be in attendance to answer general questions. It's next Wednesday, May 22nd, from 8 to 3:30 in Longmont at the Weld County Southwest Service Center. I had to read all that off my phone, so I won't be there. But you guys should go. We get a lot of kudos, and I do believe that there's gonna be a game. So stay tuned. It might be Family Feud, I'm not sure. Is it Family?
Mm-hmm.
It's Family.
I think we were gonna try and have cumulative, but I think it wasn't gonna work. Are you gonna do that again, or is it gonna be, could it be recorded or anything?
I don't think it's, we did ask the question, we haven't heard back yet, because we want to watch it as well, but we have a Dr. Cog conflict, so. That's why we won't be there, but please attend or send someone from your agency. It's very insightful, all the nuances for CDOT contracting and just getting through the project process.
Thank you.
So first of all, welcome to the other Mark started last month. So he is not replacing Alex, but that is the position.
The new Alex.
And we have another new planner starting on June 3rd. If you remember last month, Mike was leaving community, so he'll be starting, June's that one either. He'll be starting on June 3rd, so he will be at the June TAC. And then for SS4A projects, there's at least 4, possibly 6 that have been awarded to communities within the region in around August, perhaps, or later if it works better with all of you that have been awarded funds. We would like to have a sort of a mini roundtable discussion item with those that have been awarded the funds to talk about the status of the project, what the project is, where it is, what it is that you're doing, and how that's working, and what the benefit will be. So if that's something that you're the point person on that, could you please let me know? Otherwise, I'll reach out to people that we know of, and then go from here. Probably August, unless you could say you're still in contracting phase, which is then we'll just choose.
Can others listen in or just hear more about what's?
Oh, yeah, it'll be at a TAC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Is that the awards went up for this first round yet? They said in May or this month.
No, they were due tomorrow.
Well, there was a February.
Yeah, that one I don't know about, and then, yeah, there's one tomorrow, and then August 29th.
Correct.
Is the next one. So, for those rounds, no, I don't, but I know in the previous rounds, Wells County and Windsor?
Weld County and Windsor, is that what you said?
Yeah, the last, the most recent round, yeah, Larimer County, Greeley.
And Fort Collins for some implementation or demonstration funds.
Yeah, and then there's one more I feel like. Yeah, so we'd like to have that at the August TAC meeting, but I want to give everyone a heads up on that. And that's all. Besides the email blast that will come out from, where will it come from?
The North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization.
So
Or
same,
it might be staff.
yeah, it's the same as the newsletter, so it'll come from that same, but it will go to. You'll see it. So.
Sorry, are we grounding the table?
Anything else on the roundtable?
If there isn't anybody else in between there. We are also hiring a GIS intern, so if anybody happens to know somebody looking for a GIS internship, please send them our way.
It's paid, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it is paid.
I will mention, we've had a lot of good luck with Ames getting
Oh, yeah.
GIS interns through Ames.
Do you by any chance know if they use the handshake platform or if they use something else?
No, I think, maybe I'll ask our team that. Or make him, I don't think it's still on, but
I think he.
it's traffic is. Yeah. I'll find out.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, next month is Colorado Bike Month. And so at the beginning of the month, I'll send out a newsletter for Bike Month events and things. So if there's anything that your community is doing or any kind of maybe bike related project that you want to highlight, reach out to me and let me know. I think that was all I had.
Anybody else in the house? Anybody online for the roundtable? Not seeing anybody. Final public comment, any public comment?
I believe there was a question we were going to ask TAC during roundtable.
How about the?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Like what?
Yeah, I talked about this a while ago, but then I didn't send it out till very early this morning. That's okay.
No.
Oh, the location, oh, that.
Yeah.
For the next meetings with the.
The next, yeah, so this is not the ideal setup for these meetings. It's very loud. Whatever was going on next door, last month we had, the shop vac is the fountain was going on. And then we've had the pool, anyway. I know in the past that Eric Tracy had offered the Loveland building from Larimer County, and that's where we met in August when this facility's been closed. We asked him if it was available. He went ahead and reserved it for us. So if that is something that TAC is interested in, that is a location that we could meet at starting next month. Minus there's 2 months they are not, or is it not next month? There's 2 months that they can't.
One of them was October, I don't remember if the other one was.
But if that's something that you're interested in, it's slightly less centrally located, but more conducive, I would think, to meetings.
Conversation, especially with the online people.
Yeah, we've had a lot of just issues with the sound not being very good with the hybrid meetings, just because it is so loud and echoey. And so that meeting room at Larimer County seems a little bit more conducive to the hybrid meetings.
We could host as well, and we'll look at that room where we do the.
That
big, yeah, the 3.
Oh, upstairs
Yeah.
at Public Works, yeah. So not where our city council meets, but our TAB
No,
advisory board.
yeah, that, Public Works, that's something. We need to look at snow plows. I like
That's right.
It's very exciting.
They can be noisy, but they're not.
We're right above the shop floor there, so if they're working the pneumatic hammers or something to try to break something
Very
free. You get
conducive to think.
a little loud, but that's pretty rare. It's only once or twice that's happened.
But yeah, so if anyone feels strongly about staying here, please let me know. If anyone, because there are going to be a couple months that Larimer County facility is not available, so maybe we go to Loveland or something, or, if it's during a month that happens to have a snowstorm, we could just be remote completely. I mean, that's always an option, which is good to have. So yeah, if I can send an email just asking everyone and just respond with your preferences.
The remote option would still.
Oh, yeah, the hybrid's not going away.
I guess that's all. Next time. See y'all next one.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.